Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial for our ODST build series as we prepare these for DragonCon. In this video we're going to be covering a couple different sidearms for each of our characters. Mine will be the Socom pistol and Jamie here has got the SMG, is that right?
Yeah, it is the M6C Socom and the M7S SMG.
We've also got an M1 combat knife we're going to throw in there as just a little character piece. We've got a couple different methods on how we're going to finish these, but they're going to come out looking very uniform and looking like they belong to a set. Both the Socom and SMG were modeled by our friend Dungeons and Starships. You can check out his Patreon, his Etsy shop. Those will both be linked in the description below, or you can get these files on galacticarmory.net. So we're going to start with the Socom pistol. Now, both the Socom and SMG we're doing are the Halo 3 ODST versions. Jamie, you got to do a bit of resin printing for this Socom, right?
Not a bit. This is all the resin printing. I was wanting to make sure that our resin facilities were up to date and ready to go, so I made sure to build this entire Socom pistol using our resin printers. This is the Elegoo Jupiter, which is one of the biggest out there.
Yeah, exactly. But a member of our community also found that these Socom files can be printed on a smaller resin printer like the Elegoo Saturn. So what are the advantages of resin printing an entire pistol like this?
So the main benefit is you are going to get a lot of crisp details from this. And that is right out of the box. You will not need to do much post-processing. You'll not need to do much sanding, though there will be a little bit. When you see the pieces that we have here, there will be little pockmarks on it. And that is just where the supports were holding this piece. There might even be a little bit of warping that needs to be sanded down. But that's a really quick job for just a little bit of Bondo and a little bit of sanding.
Yeah, you can try and avoid those pockmarks, but for pieces this large, it's usually best to have your settings to where there's a little bit of an indentation or where the support actually goes inside the model itself.
Yeah, it's easier to fix this problem than to actually risk the print itself failing, because as we know, resin printers can be pretty temperamental.
Absolutely. So once you've got all the dimples filled in with Bondo, what's the next step?
We're just going to hit it with a little filler primer. It won't hurt. It will make sure that our surface is a little bit more even after all of this sanding. And it will also soak into the Bondo that's still there just a little bit. And once that's done, that'll actually provide a really good standard primer for the paint that we want to use.
Yeah, a flat black primer. We use this for a lot of different props. It acts as a perfect base for anything black. Just a few light coats. Don't want any runs or anything like that.
And we find that this black primer is actually one of our favorites out there. We've tested a lot of these and nothing really comes out quite as nice and uniform as this black primer by Rust-Oleum.
It dries to a very nice matte finish.
Yeah, more than the ultra matte by Rust-Oleum.
Yeah, which is a little bit weird, but whatever. Once you've waited for that paint to dry, about 24 hours, it's time to put it all together.
Yeah, and that's the massive benefit of this resin printing. It is simply just clean it up, paint it, put it together. That is it when you're done. When you've done the proper safety procedures of dealing with resin, it's really this easy. This entire build took about 2 afternoons.
Yeah, you really knocked it out very quickly.
It's the resin printer doing all the job. So we're just going to glue these pieces together. We're going to use some clamps to make sure that any warping is held together and the two pieces are nice and uniform. I just hit it with some activator to make sure that this is just set instantly.
So we have a very nice plain looking pistol here, but we're going to do a very simple technique to make it look a lot more lifelike and realistic.
Yeah, and you can apply this to this SMG as well, or any other props that you want to make look metallic. You want to make it look like it's machined metal. So I'm just going to get this makeup brush that I stole from my wife. I'm going to use some gunmetal paint. This is just an acrylic lead belcher from Citadel by Games Workshop. And we're going to put it onto the brush and take most of it away. When you're dry brushing like this, you want to make sure that you are evenly removing both pigment and medium. You do not want to remove too much of one, so I would not recommend drying this brush using paper towels. It is a common mistake. So I like to use an even surface like this dry brushing palette that you see here. This dry brushing palette will just smear the paint into the brush and will take off a lot of the excess. That will allow you to provide an even and non-streaky dry brushing, which we're just going to use that to hit all of these edges just to make this look a little bit worn, a little bit distressed. Hit some of the places where your hand will most likely be hitting, where your grip will be. So that's along the trigger, along the slide at the top, And just anywhere that it looks like will be, worn and used. And
basically the effect you're getting is putting a lot of age into this weapon. It might look fresh black out of the factory, but, being carried around on a battlefield, it's going to get scuff marks. It's going to rub up against other metal pieces, and that paint is going to get scratched away, especially on all those hard corners, which is the spots that you're hitting.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's just making sure that this piece looks like it's from a real world, especially a combat zone. So hitting this piece on all these edges will just make it look not flat black, but actually like machine metal. And you can even take this a step further and get a really light dry brush over the surface, which will make the entire thing look a little bit more metallic. It'll add a little bit of metal paint to the surface overall, and will make it less flat black and more gunmetal.
And we do this exact same technique on the SMG, just on a little bit of a larger scale. And speaking of the SMG, instead of a resin print like the Socom, this is actually a traditional FDM print that we got off our Bamboo X1 Carbon. Now, we've been loving this printer for this ODST build. It's super fast, super detailed, and allows you to finish this whole SMG in a couple days as well.
Yeah, this thing sometimes feels like cheating. It is incredible. Yeah. It is absolutely shocking, the quality of the prints when you get this, to the point that when you just apply a single layer of filler primer, give this a wet sand on 400 grit, and hit the piece with a second layer of filler primer, you're pretty much done.
You're pretty close to being done. All that's left is really to paint it.
And assemble, yeah. It's shocking how well this comes out on a Bamboo. It doesn't hold a candle to our CR10s, that's for sure.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. It kind of feels like cheating.
And you'll see the whole kit laid out here in front of me as I'm starting to assemble it. All of these pieces receive the exact same treatment, which was 2 layers of filler primer and a wet sand. That's it. It is ready to go with just that amount of treatment. We've added a couple pieces of resin just for detail, but that's it. Oh, and it does look great. It is such a cool, iconic piece.
It is, again, by Dungeons and Starships, and I feel like it's the perfect scale, too. Like, for, a normal-sized human.
Yeah, this isn't Master Chief holding it, trust me. And there's a really cool element of this as well, that the front grip will be able to flip back, and the suppressor, not silencer, will be screwed on to an internal thread in that barrel. And we just put a wooden dowel in to reinforce it, but that can be screwed on and off depending on what your preference is for the day. It is a really cool piece, and especially looks even better when you use the same weathering techniques that we did on the Socom.
The last little prop here today is going to be the M1 combat knife. It's kind of just something that I wanted for my character. I envisioned him as kind of a close quarters guy, so a little bit of shotgun action and a couple knives here and there.
Sounds like a pleasant character.
We have got the resin casted knife that we got from the Sean Bradley kit. I'll throw that on somewhere else and just have multiple knives. But this one also printed on the Bamboo, and so we're able to finish that very quickly.
To put this in perspective, this took me an afternoon. I sprayed this raw piece of FDM with filler primer before I left work. I came back the next day, wet sanded it, sprayed it again, and it was ready. It was ready to paint and finish.
I'll say, we've been 3D printing for many years now, and these latest generation of 3D printers are just blowing us away. And, Bamboo has come out and said that they're working on new stuff as well. So if we can get a large scale printer that prints with the quality of this Bamboo, I think it's going to be absolutely game changing to the cosplay community as a whole, really. The fun thing about this knife is there's a little wooden tang, what typically is made of metal, that inserts into the sheath. Here it's just made out of wood, so I'm going to grab some screws here and actually just screw them in. You have to make sure they're kind of short so that you can screw them in from both sides and not have them interfere with each other, but also long enough to where they bite into that wooden tang.
And this thing is super light. It's about half a pound.
It will not be too hard to carry. I really like the mixed medium of the actual metal screws into a 3D print.
Yeah, it really stands out. And then all you need to do is just hit these edges with a little bit of that silver dry brushing as usual. Maybe add a little bit of oil into the recesses of that UNSC symbol, and you've got a finished piece.
Oh yeah. Adding that oil wash into that recessed UNSC logo really made a difference.
And that's it. I think that's our primary sidearms.
Yeah, Jamie, you were able to knock a lot of these out in just about a week, really. I could not keep up with you.
Yeah, the motivation's there, but also like technology is just rapidly advancing to the point that it is doing most of the work for me. It's kind of scary.
I will say, though, so far, no printer has been able to paint something as well as you. So as long as that does not exist, I'll keep you around.
I'll stay. I'll keep my job for now.
Well, everybody, kind of a random video covering a lot of different projects and different parts of our kit, but we wanted to throw something in together just to give you guys an idea of all of the parts going into this process. There's a lot of different small things that we're going to be adding on to both of our armor kits in the future. I assume we'll do more accessories, maybe some pouches or different knife kits or grenades. All sorts of things we can add onto this kit. That's kind of what I like about these ODSTs, is that they're a lot more traditionally military compared to something like a clone trooper, which is like you have these boxes, but you're not really sure what most of them do. And I feel like there's not as much room for customization.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You can really let your imagination go wild here, but also keep it in the bounds of the tacti-cool aesthetic that is the ODST.
I think that's my favorite part about this project so far, is just being able to really design your own OC from the ground up, and you get to make it truly yours. So that's all for this video. We've got a lot more planned for you guys. We're going to be updating you all on the progress of the armor, all the different weapons. Stay tuned. Thank you all for watching. We hope to see you again in the next one.